My name is Kathy Kukovich. Some of you know me as Professor Kukovich, and I'm really pleased that you could all join us this evening. We have a fantastic panel of marketing experts from here in the Detroit area, as well as all the way down in Florida. People that can address your questions and concerns as you are beginning to navigate the next phase of your development, moving out of Wayne State and into the real world of marketing. So we are here to help you and answer your questions. What I thought would be most helpful to start is just a brief introduction so you can all get to know our moderator and our panelists. And I will have each of them share their name, their current position, and a brief biography of some of the different positions that they've held throughout their career. So Susan, I will kick it off with you.
Hello, I'm Susan Hummel. I have been doing this crazy industry for quite a while, over 20 years, on both the client and agency side, a lot of different industries, including automotive and healthcare. Currently, I'm the Group Marketing Director for the Detroit Medical Center. And welcome, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Shelley. Oh, you got to unmute.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Wright. I work for Ally Financial. I am the Chief of Staff to our Chief Marketing Officer, and I also run all of the marketing operations for Ally.
Thank you, Shelley. How about Jamie?
Good afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Jamie Michelson. I lead an advertising agency called SMZ in Troy. We serve a bunch of brands like Michigan Lottery and Comerica and Beaumont. And I have worked in this business in Michigan area and in New York and in Baltimore in my career.
Thanks, Jamie. Casey.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Casey Herbis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer with Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage in beautiful downtown Detroit. Been with the company 3.5 years. Prior to that, I spent 25 years in automotive, 17 years at BBDO, which was the agency of record for Chrysler, what we now know as FCA, and soon to be, I think, Stellantis or another brand name. And then after 17 years on the agency side, I joined FCA, where I was the marketing director for Fiat in North America. So thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here. Ken. Oh, Ken, you got to unmute.
There, how's that?
Much better.
Good. Sorry about that. Ken Banks. I'm a marketing consultant with my own private firm. I have been doing that for about 15 years. After a career in packaged goods with Procter & Gamble, agency business with Donor and a couple other agencies, and retail marketing with companies like Circuit City, PetSmart, Eckerd Drugs, Dayton Hudson, and several others. And I'm glad to be a WSU graduate.
Fabulous. All right, we're potentially expecting one more panelist. We will welcome him if he is able to join us. Everyone's days are a little bit crazy. But the way the session is going to work today, we'll spend the first hour having Susan ask each of the panelists questions that perhaps you or some of your fellow students have submitted to us through the Mike Ilitch Marketing Association. So we'll do that for about an hour, and then we want to leave half an hour at the end of the meeting where you all please feel free to ask any question you might have. You've got a wealth of experience here on this panel, and we're all here to help guide you as you begin your career. So with that, I will turn
Kathy, let me just jump in very quickly because we've got two events going at the same time here. But I'm John Taylor. I'm chair of the Marketing and Supply Chain Department. Just want to thank all the panel for all your work and the Marketing Advisory Committee for all the work. It's a great event, and thanks so much on behalf of the department for all your help with this. You know, great opportunity for students. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan.
If I could jump in really quickly, sorry.
Oh, yep.
So we're taking attendance for this event through career planning and placement. So I just put a Qualtrics survey in the chat. It's a quick, like 3-question survey. If all of you student attendees can just quickly fill that out, name, access ID, today's date, and careers in marketing, that would be tremendously helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Okay, we'll get going with the question portion. There's 3 sections of questions that have been submitted so far. One is about career marketing, the second section is job search, and the third is. So let's start out with a couple marketing questions. And Casey, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell us about some of the primary careers that exist in the marketing field?
One more time, Susan, sorry.
Would you mind telling us about some of the primary careers that exist in the marketing and advertising field?
Yeah, sure. And give a little bit of context. So it's interesting at Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage, the QL marketing team, we're primarily an in-house agency. So we have over 300 team members, and we do everything at QL for Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, also several other brands within the Rocket family of companies. We do everything from Super Bowl down to t-shirts and everything in between. And so we have a wide variety of subject matter experts with a wide variety of skills that are part of our team. So we have over 100 team members that are focused on creative. That creative could be, you know, print, digital, social. I actually just left. We're shooting 6 spots over the next 5 days, all around the Metro Detroit area for a new Rocket Mortgage campaign. So I've got 100 creative team members. So creative is a big, important part of what we do. What I've seen is in a large growth over the last, we'll call it 10, 15 years, is the amount of data subject matter experts that we have on the team. It's one of those things where, you know, an old guy like me, I'm continuously learning the power of data and how we utilize data to make those important decisions. I don't care if it's from a creative, obviously in lower funnel activity, from a lead generation to how to communicate with a client, every client, every time, with the right message at the right time, but also how do we utilize data to make creative decisions, media decisions, partnerships, so on and so forth. The power of data that I've seen is a skill that I think is an ante to play. How to understand data and utilize it is a skill that I would challenge every person coming in the business to make sure they're comfortable with, if not learn about it. Folks like I that didn't have as much data at our hands years ago, we've learned how to adapt to it and utilize it. So to me, that's a very, very powerful tool that you can bring coming out of school. A lot of it is just the age of curiosity and wanting to seek to understand and ask the questions, and don't take no for an answer. I think taking no for an answer is a path of least resistance. Always challenging and pushing. That's where I think some of the best ideas, I don't care if it's from a simple email to a direct mail piece to a Super Bowl idea, comes out of pushing and challenging, using data to your advantage, but also you know, letting your creative juices flow.
Thank you, Casey. Shelley, I wonder if you would mind maybe talking about some of the careers in marketing and maybe thinking about some of your agency partners, some of the other areas that Casey didn't mention.
Sure. So in terms of, you know, some of the other careers, if you will, so I started my career off in advertising. So I was at an advertising agency in the Detroit area. So certainly I would say, you know, definitely advertising agencies around Metro Detroit. I mean, you have a lot of the big 3 agencies, big 3 in terms of Ford, Chevrolet, and FCA. And a lot of the agencies around town, like Campbell Ewald, you have, I'm trying to think, Sapient Razorfish, GTB, you know, there's a lot of other agencies outside of, you know, just supporting the big 3 that, you know, certainly have opportunities and careers that you can go into for advertising. You know, I was certainly at Campbell Ewald for about 5.5 years before I moved over to Ally Financial, which I've been there for about 12 years now. So certainly some people, you know, start on the client side. I think coming right out of, college, it was helpful for me to start in the advertising career and to, build up that knowledge for me, which has, I think, made me more successful in the role now that I'm in, at Ally Financial. So I would say certainly that would be one avenue that, students can go into immediately following college.
Thank you, Shelley. I see that Rich has joined us. So Rich, I don't mind if I throw a question your way. Why don't you tell us what marketing looks like in your company and what that entails? And maybe introduce yourself to start off since you've just joined us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so sorry I'm late, guys. I apologize. User error, I'm sure, in trying to get online. It always tells you don't wait till the last minute. Do it a few minutes early to make sure you join the conversation when you need to. So sorry about that. Just real quickly, my background, it's going to sound a little bit like Shelley's. I actually started in advertising. I didn't work at Campbell Ewald. I worked at Young and Rubicam and J. Walter Thompson for a number of years, actually over 15 years. Before that, I went client side. And then at that point, I went to GM with the aspirations of feeling like I could have much more control over how things work. And you do get more, but it's also a learning experience to understand how to go into an organization and kind of figure out how to navigate through that. And I'll talk a little bit about that, about GM in a second. So I've done a lot of different roles just from my background standpoint. I started out in account management, but I also worked in strategy planning, media, CRM, digital. I really like the advertising and promotion space, so I spent a lot of time doing that. Now that I've been at GM, I did some advertising roles as well as broader marketing roles and getting into product pricing and some other things too, so we can talk some about those things. But to go back to your question, Susan, just a little bit about GM. We're obviously a really, really large company. One of the reasons I went to this company because it affords you to do a lot of different things. I've had the opportunity to work at big things like Chevrolet. I'll call it medium things like OnStar, and even smaller programs, because I'm working right now in a current role within GM Innovation, which is a space where we incubate future revenue opportunities and business opportunities for the rest of the company. And so I think one of the things that I'll say, and I'm going to go back to my comment a minute ago, was when I left the agency side, I kind of thought, wow, I really want to kind of get out of being a consultant, and I really want to have more control over how things work. And I think what you realize when you go into it, you really start to understand the things that you really liked about your good clients that managed a lot of the stuff internally. Because like anything, even at small companies, every role, every job that we play is always as part of a team. It's never an individual, it's never one person. And yes, there's always someone who's the kind of the leader of that. But even when you come into an organization, whatever part of marketing you're working on, even if it's part of it, the advertising, you're working with the agency, it's always about building relationships within the company, building up credibility within the company, and then making sure that people understand your plan, what you're trying to do, what the vision of what that looks like, and how it aligns to what the company's vision is and what the company's plan and the business plan is. So they're, marketing on my side, I hate to say this, to me, I always feel like I'm using a lot of the account management skills that I learned on the agency side. And I'll echo what Shelley said about kind of starting out at an agency and learning. I think you really do at an agency learn how to get things done, so that when you come on the client side and there's marketing questions, you're deep on how these things work and how things get built, so that you can help build the credibility and the support for what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Rich. Ken, I think it'd be interesting from your perspective as a consultant, if you wouldn't mind answering the same question, a little bit about maybe some of the roles you've had in marketing, or how marketing might work in companies that you've been working with or facility connected to.
Sure. I think the big thing is that there's one common thread through all of the careers that you can go into, and that is the important branding and marketing strategy. That no matter what side of it you go on, it is critical to your success in that, and understanding what the principles of that are, and understanding it for your company. Having said that, I think, following through some of the opportunities, of course, I just could kind of follow through my career, and in the brand management side of it, in CPG and many major companies like GM and so forth, brand management is very important and really drives the whole marketing efforts in terms of really understanding where you are relative to the competition and where to go from there. The other part of it then is, having been on that side, is to go onto the agency side. A lot of times we're on the agency, on the advertising side within marketing, and we deal with, as I have, with several major agencies like J. Walter Thompson, Publicis, and Donor. And on the agency side provides you an opportunity to get even a broader viewpoint, especially if you have the opportunity, as I have, to work on several accounts. So you broaden and don't get pigeonholed into one industry. The other part of it is working in the events and promotional part of it. That more and more in today's world, getting on the special events part of it, that it's not just running ads and traditional media that brings in customers. It's all the creation of events that get the customers involved and helps build those relationships that are so critical. Another important part of it is, and I've worked a lot in this, is the research part of it, that everything that you do, no matter what your position is, research is a kind of a driver behind that. Without the facts, it's very hard to make the appropriate marketing decisions. So research continues to be extremely important. And the way we get the research has changed dramatically over the last 20 years, but still it's a matter of trying to understand the customer, why they shop, why they buy a product, what their trends are currently, and going forward with that. And another part of it too is dealing in the media side of it. Media is extremely important, and we tend to think of it only from the sales perspective sometimes, but media is an extremely important part of the media part of it. So within the environment, we all get experience with all of these various aspects, and no matter what your position is, I think the opportunity to have responsibility and an understanding of each part of those disciplines is extremely important.
Thank you. We had a couple questions here about how difficult or easy it would be to transition between jobs. And I think our panelists so far have given you guys a great example that transitions occur often. So I'm going to move on to another question and ask Casey, what is it you like most about marketing? What do you really enjoy? And how has it changed over the course of your career?
Yeah, and I love how Ken walked through all the different areas of marketing. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that through my career, and particularly now as serving as the CMO for Rocket Mortgage, I live in every channel. Like I live in every channel, whether it be, Super Bowl creative down to looking at T-shirts that our team members wear to an event, and everything in between. So I think, for me, what I enjoy the most, like I grew up on the tier 2 side, retail, working with dealers and understanding the retail side. I would never trade that experience back ever. I think it's really provided me the opportunity to continuously grow, understanding what has to happen at retail to turn business. I don't care if you're selling hamburgers, cars, or anything else. What I enjoy most is the role of CMO. I really enjoy the creative process. I really did not do a lot of creative earlier in my career. It was more media and CRM based. And when I joined FCA and I had the chance to help launch the Fiat brand, I had never been on a shoot before. I had been in the business 17 years, and all of a sudden I find myself in Italy shooting for 2 weeks, bringing a brand campaign, and a few months later, a Super Bowl ad. I really love the creative process. I'm heavily involved on that, from working with our research and strategic insights team, developing the brief, looking at ideas, shaping those ideas, and bringing them to life. I mean, nowadays, if we do a Super Bowl ad, I'll look at 200, 250 ideas to find the one to put on stage in front of 120 million people. The other part of the business I really enjoy is media. Media has changed so much. The days of buying spots and dots, or if you had a big brand budget, I used to call it, you used to, spray and pray. Now the amount of data and intelligence that goes into identifying audiences, who are the audiences you want to target, and then go after that, and as targeted as you can get. Even in some of the older, if you will, linear and audio space, the ability to target clients and making sure you're not wasting those monies is something that's really, really exciting to me. So for me, creative and media are the two big areas I really enjoy. And event activation, as Ken mentioned, bringing a brand to life outside of a traditional media channels, whether it be the Rocket Mortgage Classic or doing something with the Super Bowl. Those are like two of the three areas I really enjoy the most.
Thanks, Casey. Rich, I'm going to ask you this next question about trends and what trends people should be paying attention to. You know, Casey brought up some good points about the importance of metrics and data and the way we really change the way we target consumers. But what other trends do you think are important for everyone to be thinking about?
Yeah, he actually kind of stole mine. I like the one Casey brought up. I think because I've been doing this for 30 years now, and that's to me the biggest change and evolution in how the business works, because everything. And so I'll expand a little on the data piece because I do think it's critically important. There's the analytics, which I agree with, and there's the measuring of success and performance that, going back when I started, I think the best measurement we used to have was, brand tracking studies that we used to do to see, are we increasing the opinion of the brand and consideration of the brand and traffic to our stores and things like that. And those are still good. And actually we still use those tools, but now it's got down to, you can measure the ROI on every single ad that you run from a performance standpoint, particularly in spaces like digital, right? It's completely changed the way that we interact with customers. Not only are you measuring differently, but you're also not just you're also finding those customers differently. There are tools now, and Casey kind of hinted at this, but really one-to-one. I mean, where you can go out there and there's a lot of companies now that are really starting to push that privacy end, with how far this stuff goes. But it's almost getting to the point now where I can go out and I can work with companies with our media agency that we have, which is Kara or the Dentsu network team, that has a broad set of customer behavior online. And I may not know Casey's name when I send him an ad, but I know he bought a Sonic, that he's owned that Sonic for 2 years, that his lease is coming up, and that he doesn't buy OnStar from us. And maybe we want to give him the next vehicle and what we want to position, how we want to tailor the message to him, we can do that. And so there's a whole process with which we go and take our data, we merge that with other companies, we anonymize it, and then find people online with very, very specific creative. So not only in measuring performance, but you're able to target specifically those people and with the right message at the right time. And I think it's completely, for people that are coming into this business, completely the game changer of how the next 10 years is going to go.
Thank you. Jamie, I'll ask you this next question, if you don't mind. What are some of the challenges you think the next generation will face in this industry?
Well, there's the immediate challenge of getting jobs and interviewing and connecting in little square boxes like we're doing right now, just because of how challenged sort of face-to-face interactions are. I think the longer-term challenge is that there's things, pendulums tend to swing. And when you've heard a lot of people here, wealth of experience was a phrase used, which means maybe we're a little older. We've been doing this for a while. But there's some principles that are sort of the same: right message, right place, right time. What I see as a challenge is, as we consume and generate massive amounts of data, ones and zeros, that can create kind of micro-targeting, and from your mobile device, know where someone is and everything about that person and use all of that. How do we also, as marketers and message deliverers, still create a story that's emotional and funny and human and powerful and captures the purpose of a brand, and still has that part of the business kept not just alive, but at its core? Because most of us who do this and have done this for a while, we're just the right amount of crazy. And we work with other people who are just the right amount of crazy. And we love that. And with all of these tools and all this technology and all of this stuff, I still think at its heart, we also like distributing and telling stories, whether they be in, TikTok length form or 20 minutes long or anything in between, and on a t-shirt. And I just hope that the next generation of the business has the opportunity to keep kind of that part of it alive.
Thank you. Ken, I wonder if you have anything else to add about that idea about the challenges that this generation will face in this industry.
Were you asking me
Yeah, anything you want to add to that?
I would say the biggest challenge is to consistently, with all the the changes in technology, the changes in, that we're going through right now and so forth, is to be able to continue to understand the customer. The marketing is understanding customers and what drives their decisions and so forth. And so the important part of it is, how do we keep up with an ever-changing customer? I mean, that's been a question for years, but particularly now, because things are happening so rapidly and so quickly, and that, we have all of our demographic groups and psychographic groups, but there's still something that we have to understand as marketers. And, you asked that question about what really turns you on about the marketing business. And, I think what all of us would say is really understanding the customer, finding out what it is that's going to motivate them to buy our product, our service, and so forth. And then finding a way to appeal to them and build a relationship. Because without a relationship, you have no brand. And so I think that's, you asked the question about what's the challenge. I think the challenge is that you can't sit still and rest on your laurels, because if you do, the customer is going to change, and the ways of reaching them are changing even more quickly. So I think that's the biggest challenge right now.
Thank you. I'm going to ask each of the panelists the same question and maybe give you roughly a minute to answer. I'd like each of you to answer the question, what is the best career decision you ever made? And Jamie, we can start with you.
Oh, I'm an interesting story because I'm in the advertising business and at a firm now that was started 91 years ago by my grandfather. And my father worked in the business, and I now work in the business. And when I was all of your age as students, I wanted nothing to do with this business. I was on a path to be an investment banker and work on Wall Street. So I guess the best decision I made was, as a rebellious young person who was running away from something that was kind of in my blood that I grew up around, to go for it and seek out a job in New York and enter into the advertising business. And that's all I've ever done, and have had a pretty neat career doing that. Never imagined I'd spend 6 or 7 straight months doing that job from my basement, but most of the rest of the time been a pretty neat journey.
Thank you. Rich, do you want to answer the same question, what the best career decision is you ever made?
Yeah, I'll say it this way. I think every decision I've ever made that I have along the way to make job transitions, and I think you hear actually all the panelists talking about how they did this and then this and then this. And very early on, I had someone that came to me that said, you're young, figure out how to learn everything. This isn't really a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And that was important, because then when I got into it, I started to try to move around and do different things. I was in account management. I went to the media department. I did a number of things, but a lot of my friends would take, an extra couple $1,000s to go to another company. And I early on made the decision that I would never just move for money. That it was always about moving for experience and how I grow. And I can't imagine doing my job now without the broad experience that I've done. I mean, even probably the first real legitimate job I had was working with dealers, working on their advertising when I was in a field job. And that was 25 years ago, and I pull that out still on a regular basis because I learned from that experience. So I think the biggest thing to me is always about move for experience, never move for money. Unless it's a lot of money.
Thanks. And Casey, would you be willing to answer the same question, the best career decision you ever made and why?
Yeah, and I agree with Rich. I mean, I was at the agency, one agency, 17 years, which is rare, and nowadays, in which I saw friends leave left and right. And I love the agency, the clients. Unfortunately, we lost the business, and I got asked to join Chrysler. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go from the agency to the client side, move from one side of the desk to the other. But I feel like that was the best decision, I think, at the time, where I took everything I learned at the agency. I was able to bring it to the client side and expand my horizons, now work on a brand versus retail, learning creative production, working on a tier 1 versus tier 2. And it really provided me the building blocks to be afforded the blessed opportunity to join Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage as the CMOs, but it was taking a leap of faith, and and trusting that I had developed a skill set and, you know, relationships to move from an agency role, which I absolutely loved. I would have been happy to work there the rest of my career, to the corporate client side. And so for me, that was the best career move I've made so far. There's still some more miles on these tires. We'll see what happens.
Okay, great. And Ken, would you answer the same question if you have a different point of view about the best career decision you ever made and why?
Sure. As I mentioned, I started out in brand management with Procter & Gamble, and I was on Folgers Coffee. And coming out of grad school, that was considered the best move you could make, is to get with P&G or a company as strong as them to learn marketing. And I never denied that was a great decision. But sometimes it's just having the guts to take a chance and not be afraid to fail. And I had an opportunity, and it was serendipitous, and I wouldn't have the time to tell you how it happened, but I had an opportunity to go into the retail business. I had a career at P&G, you know, there, but I had an opportunity, and I met a guy who was extremely passionate, and he worked for a company named J.L. Hudson that you might remember. And then he said, "We're doing some wonderful things here, and you should come here." Well, that individual became the head of marketing for Target eventually. And I never looked back after that, because the retail step for me was one that got me really involved with the customer, and really involved, as Casey was talking about, the different aspects of the business, and broadened my horizon. So I wasn't just focused on one part of it, but all of it. And eventually, as I got more responsibility, I was responsible for all those activities within the marketing department and on a national basis. And so I think the key on that was, you know, following your passion and, you know, taking a chance, not afraid to take a chance is an important part of it, especially early on in your career, because that was my first move after P&G.
Yeah, and Ken, I would actually just expand on that point from my perspective and what I would consider a pivotal point in my career. So I was on the agency side. Our CMO now here at Ally, Andrea Brimmer, I had worked with her on the agency side at Kimberly Wald. So while at the agency, she had approached me and said, "Hey, you know, I have an opportunity for you. You know, we are relaunching a bank, and we're also going to be rebranding our corporation." And so she started to talk to me a little bit more in detail as to, you know, what that would look like. And at the end, she said, "Are you up for the challenge?" And here I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, geez, I've been in advertising on the auto account for Chevrolet. I don't have any financial services experience. I don't have any rebrand experience, but certainly Andrea must think highly enough of me, you know, to offer me this position to come over. And at that point, before we rebranded, it was GMAC, for some of you that might know. And so, you know, I thought about it and I said, wow, you know, this is certainly a challenge for me. It would be stepping out of my comfort zone, but you know what, like, I'm willing to take the leap. I'm willing to, you know, make this a challenge for myself. And you know what, 12 years later, I'm at Ally. I've been in a variety of positions here. And I'm so glad I did that. It was, you know, a great experience for me, you know, to work on relaunching a bank that had been around for 90 years, plus rebranding, you know, not only our bank at that point back in 2008, but then eventually our entire corporation. And it was nice to actually be under the covers about things where, you know, I knew the name of the new company. You know, we were starting to build like what those brand values look like, what the colors of the new brand would look like, and being in all those discussions from the very start. I mean, it was an invaluable learning experience for me, and I'm so glad that I took that leap, because again, it was very much outside of my comfort zone.
Thanks, Shelley. We're going to go on to our second set of questions, which is about really the job search. And Rich, I think I'll ask you this one. What is the job market like for students who are obtaining a degree in marketing today?
Yeah, I think, well, it's an interesting, timely question, right, with COVID. I will say, I think, in general, you know, like anything, I think the job market gets a little cyclical. So if you take COVID out for a minute, I think you're always going to have kind of ebbs and flows. There's constantly if companies are growing, constantly bringing in new blood. It's good for the company. It's good, obviously, to bring in new people and new thinking. I think that's still kind of a larger kind of wave that continues. I think COVID has kind of slowed things down a little bit, but I am starting to see when I talk, just internally within GM, and then when I hear from our agencies, we're starting to kind of bring things back. We went through a really rough period there where not so much about the new college people coming in, but a lot of companies had to find ways to try to save the people that they had. And I think a lot of those things are starting to slowly come back. And I even see people that we've had come in that not only were at the agencies are now coming back to the agencies, as well as I see them starting to open up new opportunities. The one thing I will say is it seems to me like internships have definitely come back. And I think, the whole idea of trying to get experience, any kind of experience, I think that both here at GM, and I know from what I hear from our agencies, has come back very strong. So I think we're kind of on the positive momentum right now, at least from what I hear and what I see. And hopefully that'll continue as we work through this kind of difficult time frame.
Thank you. Casey, do you have anything to add to that perspective about how students should really think about and what the prospects will be for students in marketing today?
Yep. Was that for me? Was that for Casey?
Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah, sure. And to Rich's point, one is internships for sure. And I can speak to what we're doing at Quicken Loans and the Rock family companies. On average, since I've been there 3 years, we're averaging between 16 and 20,000 applicants every summer. And we'll have over 1,000 kids or students join us every summer. Even during the challenging times we had this summer, we had 800 students join us virtually. In marketing, I'll have 40 to 50 interns join us every summer. And actually, I have year-round interns. I'm a big believer in having year-round interns. We'll drop down to about 10 or 15 during the fall and the spring. The growth of our organization continues to be on the back of a lot of young talent that comes to the marketplace. Since I joined 3 years ago, we've gone from 130 to 300 team members within Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage. 35% of my team has come from internships. So students started with us during school, maybe after school, and then a full-time team member opportunity became available to them. So that is one. It really is cyclical. I mean, particularly here in Detroit, generally as auto goes, the market the market fluctuates to that. But thankfully here in Detroit, in the Southeast Michigan, there are other big brands, right? You've got the automotive agents, the OEM side, the agency side. But make no mistake, when you look at Little Caesars, Carhartt, certainly I put Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage in there. I like to think that this is no longer the city of the big three, it's the big four. I like to put QL and Rocket in there. There's a lot of different brands. I have Little Caesars, Olympia, the list goes on and on. A lot of opportunities for young, but what I really stress is, finding those internship opportunities. If you can and makes sense, your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, I'm blown away when I meet young people that, they've had 2 or 3 internships by the time their senior year, and I'm like, wow. And but I think that's such a great opportunity to start as early as you can with internship, apprentices, or network your way to build experience while you're in school.
Thank you, Casey. I'll tell a funny story quickly. Back in my day, internships weren't common, and I did my first internship for free. But got me my first job. So even back then, 20 years ago, they were really powerful. So great.
Susan, you're right. I tell students today when I graduated from Michigan State in '93. Back then, the only students that really interned were like generally packaging and teachers and maybe engineers. You didn't intern. My first job out of college was for free, right? And then I got promoted to make $5 an hour. Then I got but just it wasn't as common nowadays. When you meet with students that have 1, 2, 3 internships, the opportunities are there, particularly in Detroit. So.
Yeah,
I'll add, I started an internship and I didn't leave that company for 7.5 years. So it's getting your foot in the door. It's taking any opportunity you can get. It's getting any experience you can get and running with it. So.
We'll play off of that a little bit, that question, and I'll ask Jamie this question. What are the main things I should do as a student to make myself competitive? We just talked about internships, but is there anything else you can think about in terms of really making yourself competitive as a student?
I've talked to students about this over the years. As higher ed places put classes together, look at students. There's a lot of phrases around, well-rounded and putting class together. But each student's an individual, and you put together and you work with Kimberly and others on a resume, and stuff can end up getting the opposite of what great marketing is, which is a lot of templated sort of resumes and websites with experience that look like everybody else's. It is okay to stand out and present yourself as a brand, as a concept, and lead with some particular strength. We have one young guy named Nick. He works with us now. He was a wizard with a drone camera and making and creating some stuff. And that's what got him an internship and now a full-time design creative position at an ad agency. So whatever that thing is, or things that you're really good at or really excited about or is a strength, figure out a way to kind of lead with that, light that up, focus on that, highlight that, and then add the other stuff around it. That would be my advice to people, kind of, finding those, finding their way in the job world.
But Susan,
Go ahead, Shelley.
oh, sorry, if I could just add to that as well. I also get asked this question a lot from students. Because they will come to me and say, I don't have an internship, how do I stand out? How do I get involved? And I would tell them, if there's opportunities, get involved in your college. So there's different associations that you can join in college, whether it be American Advertising Federation, a marketing, association. There's different ways to get involved. Even if, say, you join a sorority or a fraternity, you can hold leadership positions within the sorority or fraternity. Get involved in your community, get involved in charities. This is something that I feel very strongly about. And now as I have a first grader, she comes along with me to volunteer. And it's instilling that when they're young, but there's opportunities that charities need to help market their events, to help get donations. And those are some of the things that you can talk about with employers to say, it really wasn't an official position, but I helped them with their social media. I helped them, actually run the event. So there's certain things that even if they're not, an internship per se, that you can try to get involved in and put on your resume. And personally, I do look at resumes to see if people are well-rounded. Do they get involved in things like that? Because it's hard at a college level to have a ton of experience when you're a sophomore or a junior.
But Shelley, wouldn't you also say many of these students have the reality of working and having a job or jobs just to been able to make, to pay for school. And it may not be the internship in the future career they want, but that job, whatever it is, has learning and has application to his building block to what they might do next. Is that fair?
And I think that, a lot of skills can be transferable too, that, even if it's not a career in your field, you can certainly transfer that skill set, interpersonal communication skills and, certain skills over to an internship or eventually a full-time position.
Great thoughts. Jamie mentioned something interesting about standing out. So Ken, I'm going to ask you this question because I think it really talks about the ability to stand out. Should I put projects on my resume or should I put together a portfolio of my work to show prospective employers?
I really, I'm glad you asked me that question because I was just going to go on with what had just been said. I think one of the most important things you can do while you're still in school is to build your resume. And not just build it with the academics and what courses you took and everything. I've told everybody that I ever interviewed, I said, I have never asked a student or graduate what their grade point average was. I knew where they went to school, I knew what program they were in and so forth. I never asked them that. What I did look at was what did you do while you were in school? And that really gets to that point. And I think about myself that, I decided to get into the advertising part of it. So one of the first things I did is I took a job with a small agency in the Fisher Building, 12 people, but I went there to just do one thing, ask questions, find out how an ad agency works. From there, I came back to school and became ad manager of the school paper at that time at Wayne State. And I learned the media side of it. And from there, I went to work for a business-to-business company up in Warren that dealt with the automotive company to find out what it's like on the business-to-business side. And in the meantime, I also got very active at school, becoming president of the fraternity, getting on the BizAd Student Council, getting on the Interfraternity Council, Kenzie Honor Society. I don't know. I just did a lot of stuff at school that when I got done with it, I had a resume that I think as I went out to eventually start recruiting myself, people said, well, you obviously really like marketing, don't you? And I said, well, that's what I want to do. And I didn't always go for the job that had the most financial rewards, although I supported myself. And I definitely feel that when I look at a resume, that to see that someone put themselves through, if not totally, but at least partially supported their finances is a good indication. But I really believe that, building a portfolio is a day in and day out job while you're in school, not waiting until you get out. And that will be noticed by the recruiters and so forth. And if you can get an internship, I totally agree. It's a terrific opportunity.
Okay, I don't want to assume any of you have made a mistake interviewing, but the question that the students ask is, what is one mistake you've made in your job search? So anybody want to volunteer to answer that one up? One mistake in your job search.
I'll jump in and give an idea. I mean, I don't know if it was a mistake necessarily, but I think one of the things I learned after probably 5, 6, 7 years in the business was the power of networking. And it's doing these kinds of events, and it's trying to get out there. And even when you have a position and you're young in your career, you want to join the AdCraft Club. You want to do things where you meet a lot of other people. I think early on, I kind of was like, oh, and I mentioned this, I went and did an internship. I didn't leave that company for 7.5 years. It wasn't because I couldn't find anything else, but I think over time what happened is more opportunities came to me because I did a much better job of networking as I got more mature in the business. And I think that should be starting before you get there. And I think it really needs to accelerate when you get inside a company, both inside and outside that company.
Anybody else have a perspective on maybe a mistake they made during a job search?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but I would say that I had limited my search. So I had it in my head when I was in college, I wanted to have an internship in advertising. You heard about all the sexy things in advertising. So I had my mindset that that's where I wanted to have an internship. And I had 2 internships before I moved into a full-time role after graduation. So I think personally, I limited my search. I should have probably networked more, reached out just to see what else was out there. Even though I kind of had my sights set on advertising and working in an agency, just to look to see what else was out there that may have piqued my interest as well.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah, I'll take a quick one if you don't mind. It's Casey.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I've really, in my mind, I've only been at 2 places in my career. Working on Chrysler and now QL. Over time, like the phone would ring, and maybe I always say it doesn't cost anything to listen. And I would go listen to other companies, and it was sometimes like it was like a bad date. Like I didn't want to hear from them again, but they would be calling. I was afraid to say, you know what, I'm not interested, or I'd let things drag out. I'm a big advocate. If you ever hear me talk, I always talk about never burning a bridge. Because you will have to cross it again at one point in your life, whether you know it or not. And a regret I might have is companies that maybe were either reached out or were trying to recruit me, where I would let it drag out, where I knew that it wasn't, I don't care what the dollar was, I was not interested. I've never chased a dollar, I never will. But I wasn't being transparent and truthful with companies along the way, and it could have led to a bad experience or a bridge that, who knows, I may still have to cross at some point down the road.
Great perspective, thank you. We'll move on to the last section of questions, which is about skill sets. And Jamie, let me ask you this one. Are there any industry-specific tools that students should be prepared to use and understand after graduation?
I guess I would kind of stay where Ken was talking earlier about how we, the ways we keep up with both the ever-changing consumer and ever-changing technology. I think it would just be to be experimenting and trying some of the newer things. I mean, foundational is if you have some basic understanding, whatever part of sort of the marketing chain of communication stuff you might be in, if you have some basic understanding of the Google tools that include just playing a little bit in Google AdWords, understanding sort of the basics of Google Studio and Google Analytics, and whatever new one they rolled out in the last couple days, hours, minutes, most of that is available for free with tutorials, and just to be able to kind of either kick around in it at a surface level or really kind of dive into it.
Thank you. Rich, do you have anything to add in terms of this, specific tools that students should be prepared to use?
I would echo a lot of what Jamie just said. I think we've all talked about the power of data and analytics, and being able to use software like Tableau and be able to pull insights out of it and things like that, I think are important. But I'll even go more basic. I mean, you know, we at GM, maybe to our detriment, are a death by PowerPoint company. And knowing how to do the basics in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, I mean, that's all I do all day, right? Essentially, is tell stories, do analysis. I bring things to life. I sell stuff internally all day long. And so being able to use those, be able to do them quickly, be able to bring your story to life. I know that sounds really basic, but MS Office, I don't know how I do my job other than that. If you're going into other roles, there's other things like project management. If you're going to be very specifically in that, like if you're building websites and stuff, it's getting into PM software, into Microsoft PM software, and making sure you understand how to use those tools. But I think those start to get a little more specific. But I think I would walk in with trying to make sure I can do basic analysis and communication type of pieces.
Can I throw one other thing in that skill set? Even more basic than Rich just went. So, okay, we're at Google, then we go down to the Microsoft suite, and I'm going to go down to sort of the pen or pencil, which is just as you go, especially in the job search process, that ability to, whether it's do it digitally or to literally pen a thank you note, a follow-up note, some communication, some correspondence to create that relationship and connection. It's, I know I'm talking about some old school stuff in some of this, but sometimes it's zig where we zag. So we're so excited about technology and digital and whatever. And then you get a beautiful note from somebody and it stands out and like crazy. So that's
I'm with you, Jamie. It's the old, you know, when you and I were growing up in this business, it was like, you better communicate back with someone within 24 hours. And the email, there's nothing that melts my heart more than when I get a handwritten note within 2 days, because it's a reminder of who you talked to and what, or an email. I love the handwritten note. The art of interpersonal communication, even though we have multi-screens, multi-devices, the art of interpersonal communication will never wane.
Great advice. Shelley, how about this next question for you? Are there specific types of certifications that are recommended for someone who's doing career in marketing?
Yeah, so I think, you know, Jamie just touched on, you know, a couple of the big ones. So, you know, Google Analytics, Google Ads in terms of search. I think there are quite a few when you get into the digital marketing and data and analytics side. Personally, for me, I'm on the, you know, operations side. There's not a lot of certifications that I per se need for my job, but some of my peers that I work with, like I just mentioned in the digital and data analytics space, certainly there are some that they do need and would recommend to get certified in.
Thank you. Let's see. Ken, do you have any specific point of view about certifications that students might need? Coming from a consulting perspective, you've probably seen quite a bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, within the industries, there are a lot of trade organizations that provide programs for students to get involved. For example, the American Advertising Federation, AAF. There's an opportunity to get involved with organizations like that, or if you are going into retail, the National Retail Federation, an opportunity to become a student member of them. That shows that you're not in the industry yet, but you want to be and you want to learn. And they have a lot of programs, so that if you get the certification that you've been involved with those types of organizations, I think that goes a long way. I think also just to go on the outside of it, for example, one of the things that we all talk about is the importance of being a communicator in this business. Let's face it, we're all in sales because we're presenting, whether we're presenting a new marketing program, a new ad program, a research project, a customer analysis, whatever it is, we're up there. I always say I'm presenting every day, no matter what meeting I go to, we're called on to do that. And so I think to be able to get some experience that way, you know, one of the things I did when I was in schools, I took Dale Carnegie. And I took it because I wanted to be able to get up in front of people and be comfortable at it. Toastmasters is another one involved with that. And I think that's those types of programs, and there's probably a lot more that you could go on to do that. And in the process of doing that, and I know there are certifications in Microsoft Office suites and so forth that you can get certified as a quote expert. And that certainly isn't going to hurt you these days, having those certifications that are available. I also, you know, kind of on that line, I really recommend to students that to get involved in marketing themselves, create their own blog, for example, create their own website. You know, there's a lot of social media out there, but, you know, use it to market yourself the way we expect our companies to do it. LinkedIn is a very good business social media avenue I've found in terms of staying connected and so forth. So I think all of those, and then on the broader perspective, I think is not to be restricted strictly, you know, and I'm not saying you got to get all the good marketing tools, but it's also good to have things that build your awareness. And one of the things I did is I took every speech course I could take. I also took every English course I could take so I could be more aware. I think it was one advertising pioneer, Ross Rees, who I think was head of J. Walter Thompson way back in the Middle Ages, but he said the most successful people in our business who have good awareness of what's going on in the business world and in the environment and with the consumer today. And you don't get that by just studying marketing. You do it by studying what's out there and being able to communicate on different topics.
Thank you. Our last question talks about skills that are important. And we've heard a lot about data and metrics and about storytelling and presenting, and then just some great points about marketing yourself. But Casey, I'll start with you. Are there any other skills, maybe technical or soft skills or just overall skills that you think are important for marketing students to have?
Yeah, and I think the panel's done a great job of talking about, you know, some of the data. Like, to me, the ante to play is absolutely understanding, being comfortable. Y'all have grown up with Office or Mac, you know, whatever it might be. Those are ante to play. You know, understanding at a very basic level. I mean, for us, I have 72 tech stacks. I don't even know what 72 of the 75 are, quite honestly, but it's like the basics. You're looking at Google Analytics, Adobe Suite, Salesforce. I'm telling you right now, Salesforce, Marketing Cloud, and CRM. Most companies are going to a large cloud-based CRM tools, having a basic. But I love what like some of Jamie had said too, like just the basics. One of the things that we really work on with our interns over the course of a summer is working in they almost do like a 400 or 500 level class during the course of the summer. We present business problems and then they work in collaborative groups. So in groups of 6 or 8, and it's a cross section of creative and maybe more media, you know, folks that maybe have different skill sets. And they present at the end of the year to myself and my senior leadership team solutions to that business problem. Being able to really work on we all present every single day. Rich talked about, like, I sell. I mean, I'm the CMO, but I'm selling to business leaders within my organization. I'm selling to my CEO. I'm selling to Dan Gilbert every single day. So that's something that it will never, much like interpersonal communication, being able to be comfortable in presenting, standing on stage, whether it's on Zoom or 200 people or 1,000 people, working on that. To me, those are ante to play is very early in your career. And you'll never get away from it, most likely throughout the balance of your career.
Thank you. Rich, do you have anything you want to add to that in terms of skills that are critically important?
I'll just add a couple, because I do think, I mean, a few things that I've heard that I really think are important. Curiosity. People, Ken brought that up. I think being curious. I had a professor when I was in college, and kind of the light bulb went on and said, hey, I was taking advertising, 501 or whatever it was at the time, was always be curious, always be observant. You know, you're a consumer every single day. You should be looking at the billboard when you drive by it. You should always be thinking about what's the point? What are they trying to get across? So I think curiosity is important. We talked enough about communication. That's like critical. We've all said that over and over and over. The other two things that I always look at when I think about young people coming in, and I tell them, you know, what do I expect out of them? I don't expect that they know everything. They're brand new, right? In fact, in a lot of ways, an agency, and I've worked at a couple different of them, they teach you the way they want you to think about stuff. And you'll also learn when you get into big organizations like GM about how things work. And so you adapt to those kinds of things. But that's because you're really, like, when I think about soft skills, outside of communicating curiosity, I think about team building, I think about leadership, I think about an ability to be a member of a team, and how to get people motivated, back to selling, motivated about behind your idea or whatever it may be, and how to get going on it. And then just being proactive, constantly looking for, I mean, at the end of the day, marketing is really simple to me. It's about building demand for your product. I get up every morning and I think about what I'm doing. I think about how I build demand. How do I find the right people? How do I tell? So I make it simple where it's like, if I see that you're interested, you're curious, you're working hard, you're volunteering ideas, you're not afraid to throw things out and be part of the team, that's exactly what I want to see out of a person. And then, you know what, you'll learn the things along the way and you'll start to grow and evolve from there.
Great. That really wraps up our questions that we had here. Kathy, is it maybe time to see if we have any additional questions from the students who are with us tonight?
Yes, I think now is the perfect time, and I want to encourage all of you participants, take advantage of this great panel with a wealth of knowledge, not that any of us are old, and ask some questions, anything that we didn't have a chance to go over so far tonight. You can ask if you feel comfortable chiming in, or I'll be monitoring the chat as well. So ask away.
This is for anyone. What do you guys look most in like a first-time internship?
Andrew, I'm sorry, you cut up there. You'll have to start over.
All right, sorry about that. What do you guys look for in like a first-time intern? Like when you're selecting?
I mean, I'll jump in. I actually won't restate my message without going through it, but I'm back to, I want to see someone who can present themselves, who's curious, who's going to jump in, who's going to care, who's going to work hard. Again, I don't expect when we have an intern or even a first time, you know, someone who's out of college looking for their first or even second job, they're not going to know everything. I'm not looking for expertise in the position. I'm looking for drive. I'm looking for interest. Show intent. Why, I know how, before you came into this interview, did you understand the company that I work for? Did you understand kind of at least generally what I do? I mean, do you have an idea of that? Have you at least come in here? I can't tell you how many people come in. I had someone interview once when I won't say the job, but they came in and interviewed to work on my website. And I asked them what they thought of my website. And what was really clear was they'd never been to my website. And that's just appalling to me that people come in and do that. So show intent, show curiosity, show that you're going to care and that you're going to put the effort in, especially when you're young. And that's the kind of person I want, you know, sitting at the desk.
I have a question. My name is Nolan Handyside. I'm a marketing major with a psychology minor. And this is for any of you panelists in particular. But how do you see AI impacting the field of marketing specifically?
I would say AI is going to affect all of our lives in everything in the future because of the dynamic growth. But I think it will particularly affect marketing in the standpoint that it'll give us an opportunity to learn quicker and faster by really, I don't know what the right wording is, but by being able to kind of get our hands on it and experience what we're researching in addition to being able to study it. And by doing that, I think we can make quicker decisions and understand more what's going to impact our marketing decisions.
I mean, that's a great question. I'll take it from, and this is Casey. I mean, AI, if I look at all the things that we are working on, particularly in the digital social space. Not only from a marketing standpoint, but also from a product, right? You know, think about all of our, let's think about our own shopping habits. Nothing gets more frustrated for us than if, you know, you get an Amazon digital ad on your mobile device that has nothing to do with what you want to buy, right? So we're all much more accepting nowadays of being able to be targeted with the right message at the right time. And AI, we also, from a product standpoint, making sure that, Nolan, as you go through, you know, your life, that we learn more about you and we are able to offer you, you know, solutions or products or services that fit your life. So how do we get smarter? You know, one of the things that we talk about at Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, like, let the machines do what machines do. Like, we are not going to get better or faster if we try to do what machines are best at doing. Let the machines do what they do, and let's do what we do best as humans. And sometimes it's hard for companies to let that go. And how do you become smarter? It's not about being, you know, it's smarter, and that only helps you as a company, but also, you know, our clients or consumers along the way. So I see it as just so paramount in the growth, and from a product development standpoint, but also as a marketer too. I started off earlier talking about the old days of just spraying and praying. Like, I've got to make sure that, you know, we spend $1 billion a year in marketing. How do I show that spot I buy, and, you know, I'm watching the wild card on the MLB. Like, how do I know that spot's delivering the right audience, and how can I attain a value or an ROI to it? It's all going that way, and AI, like AI, AR, all that is helping, you know, carve that path.
Thank you.
I want to take a brief reminder, just to interrupt before you ask more questions, is to fill out an attendance survey. The link is in the chat, but Kimberly from Career Planning and Placement wanted me to remind all the students to please fill out the attendance survey.
Thank you, and I'll post it in the chat one more time, just in case you lost it.
Yeah, I had a question. My name's Brad Hope. I'm a Wayne State MBA student in marketing. I have an undergrad in psychology as well. I work for Siemens Corporation in their software division as a sales executive. And I'm actually wondering, I have a couple questions. One would be, what is the best way to transition into a marketing role from a sales role? I know you guys said you're selling every day. Is there a particular position that seems easier to transition into, such as account management or an account executive position at an agency? And then the second question, I believe, that I was wondering about was, you know, how often are you guys working with external marketing research firms, or are you using marketing research from an in-house source or an agency instead?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on the transition thing. I think you're not working at Siemens now. You're back at school full time?
No, I work full time, and I'm doing the MBA full time as well.
I'm not that familiar with Siemens, but I do know that, like, for example, the way a lot of, at least the automotives, a lot of the way they're structured is sales and marketing are very, very tightly woven together, right? So there were jobs, even, you know, as you start to think about an organization treeing down into more people get more focused on sales versus marketing, there were definitely people in our sales team that did retail marketing. So they did retail advertising, they worked with our dealer associations. So there were jobs within the sales team that were closer to what I was doing, which was probably more pure brand marketing, right? And I worked very closely with those people on stuff. So it's easy to kind of get close to those projects where now you got to work together, right? Because I'm coming up with a broad marketing campaign that needs to dovetail down into the sales stream. So I think you look for those opportunities to say, hey, that role looks like kind of a crossover role, or something within the sales group that feels like it's a little more marketing, and for that opportunity. You know, the other example you gave, which is a little more of a significant switch, is going into an ad agency. It depends on kind of where you're at in your career and stuff like that. I don't know that you would take a step back, but you're definitely going to have to, like, walk in and probably take a little bit of time to work your way back through, you know, I think that's a little harder of a shift. I'll be really honest with you. I, at an agency, interviewed a client one time to come into the agency. We ended up hiring that person. And I will tell you, the first 6 months was a very big struggle for someone that had worked client side for about 7 to 8 years, because it's a lot different working on the side where the work, you kind of have the meeting, you go away, the work gets done, and it comes back, right? When you actually have to marshal those resources and make them happen, it's not that simple. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thanks.
Brad, did you get your question answered about external research firms?
Yeah, so the question again was, how often are you guys working directly with external market research firms, or where are you getting your insights from and your data, I guess?
I'll answer part of that. I have used every possible research avenue as I could. Large external research firms from Nielsen on down to interview, one-on-one interviewing companies that go out there and actually talk to customers, to doing our own research too, which in today's world, it's much easier to do a research study quickly and effectively than we ever could in the past. And the opportunity to get a question answer is pretty darn easy these days if you just have the use the tools that are available to be able to do the online research. And I think the answer to the question is anywhere you can get it. And there are a lot of companies that specialize in certain industries and in certain customer mindsets. And the media, by the way, are also very valuable in providing market research.
Yeah, I think I'll add is and I'll echo what you just said. I think we do focus groups, we do surveys, we pull in a lot of syndicated sources, we do a lot of that stuff. Sometimes we forget that we've got a lot of, again, back to data, we've got a lot of research that exists with people interacting with our products on a regular basis. I worked on the OnStar business for a while, and how they engage and behave with our services. You learn more about what your customers are doing sometimes than even having to go outside and get that outside. So I like Ken's, you find it anywhere, I agree with that, but there's always the customer engagement that you have. That's a huge research tool to me.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, we have a research group within the marketing department, but we do rely very heavily on third parties. So we utilize, Mintel, Hansa, Forrester reports. So I would say a cross selection, to get the research, mostly the consumer research that we're looking for, definitely tells us a lot. And also it helps to get a lot of the competitive information that we're looking for that we wouldn't be able to glean in-house. So certainly use it in that way as well.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, here's something coming in from the chat. I just wanted to know if someone could talk about what steps they take to ensure their desired quality of work is achieved. I'm not sure I understand that question. I'll read it again. I just wanted to know if someone could talk about what steps they take to ensure their desired quality of work is achieved.
So I'll try to answer that. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, the way I take the question is about how you manage up. Knowing how you're performing is going to come from the person that you work for and with and the people around you. So back to communication and team building. If you're working in a company and you don't know how you're performing and where you stand, and whether you're achieving your goals, then either you or the people you work for aren't doing a very good job of from a personal management standpoint. So I do think sometimes you'll find in your career you'll work for supervisors that maybe aren't the best at letting you know how that's going. I think you have to take it on yourself to figure out ways to do one-on-ones and constantly work with your immediate superiors to make sure you feel like you're delivering on the things that are set out. Hopefully that got close to the answer.
Is that what you were looking for? We want to be able to help you. Yes. Okay. Nice job, Rich.
I have a quick question. Hi, my name is Devin Burns. I'm a senior marketing manager, and I am currently the director of marketing, have been for 4 years now, for a restaurant chain in Detroit. And my question has to do with data. So of course, data has shifted the way and the opportunities that we have as marketers. And sometimes I feel the challenge, especially as a one-person marketing team, is how we can use that data, especially when there's so much coming to us, and make strategic decisions with it. So what I'm curious for, and you all work in different industries, and I'm sure you use data in different ways, but how are you using the data? Where are you getting it from outside of even Google Analytics in using it to make your decisions? I know, Casey, you touched on a little bit of that in the beginning.
Yeah, and this is Casey. I'll take that. I mean, I think about the data that we utilize for. I think Rich was talking earlier about brand health, right? For us, we utilize data that we get from Millward Brown, KMB. We utilize that to help shape, like, how are we doing from a brand awareness consideration, getting feedback from clients that helps us shape. I will tell you how I look at data is to help inform. I don't always want to let data just make the decision for me. To me, it's like understanding how can I utilize data to help make the best informed decision. Just because if data were to like walk me down a path like, wow, we're missing the mark from an advertising communication standpoint. Okay, that's great feedback. Now, how can I try and address that via a creative solution? Media is the same way. I mean, when we buy media, we're obviously buying impression and audience delivery. But first and foremost, even before we get to an audience delivery, I want to make sure that I'm buying a program or a channel or a platform that will reach the desired audience. So to me, where I utilize the data, and the data is endless and it's everywhere, whether it's in performance marketing, creative development, media distribution, events, what celebrity to utilize, like in a commercial, like I use it as a guardrail and to help inform that decision. So again, that's how I best utilize this, just to form these guardrails to help either solve a problem or inform a pathway to pursue.
Yeah, and I would just add to that as well, like in terms of how we look at data and how we utilize it. And you take a look at the customer journey, and even before somebody becomes a customer, you take a look at the sequence of events in somebody's life. And how can we, get to that person knowing that, oh, they just bought a car, maybe their next step is to buy a home. So looking, and we utilize data to say, hey, let's do the trigger before the trigger. Let's, get in front of it if we know that they might be in market soon for a home. And then, once they become a customer, for us, we utilize customer data to cross-sell into upsell. So cross-sell, they might be a deposits customer, but how do we get them now to become a mortgage customer, an invest customer, an auto customer? So we're using data even before they're becoming a customer to buy our products. And then obviously when they get into the portfolio, to cross-sell them to other products and upsell, and then retain them as well.
Shelley, you mentioned that you have a research department there at your place, and I'm sure that all of us have had research departments and do right now. And I think the answer to the question is that, what is the research department for? I always say the marketing people need to come up with the questions that they have to get answered in order to develop the marketing strategy. The research department is first of all going to find out where do you get the data so you can make an intelligent decision. In other words, what resource for research data is out there. But also you want the research department to provide actionable research. In other words, okay, here's what the data shows, and here's what we think it means in terms of the answer that you're trying to determine for your product or service, or what the competition's doing, whatever that question is. And so to build a relationship with the research department is critical, and it should be part of the team. In the agency business, the market planner, the planning department is critical, because they would get the research that we as an agency would then take to the client and provide them with a creative or marketing direction again, based on facts, not just based on individual opinion or what the client has currently got. If they knew all the answers, they wouldn't have hired us in the first place.
Can I jump in for 1 second? 'Cause I think I remember meeting you a year or so ago at an event, Devin, and you're involved with one of the restaurant chains or Coney Island chains, and you're wearing all the hats. So the research department you're saying is you. It's a department of one, and you're the other departments. The first thing about research and all this data is, what are you trying to find out? We go, oh, there's all this data, but it's not going to just magically tell you stuff. So are you trying to find out that the staff that work all the restaurants and is having to do that, in masks and whatever, where are they? Or what are the guests who are coming to you think of you? Or what are the people who aren't coming to you thinking of you? Or some other question. But I think it always starts with, what are you trying to find out? Then it's, what kind of research do we need to do? Is it a qualitative research where we just talk to a few people, one-on-one interviews, focus groups, send them a survey, grab them into a Zoom? Or is it where it's got to be quantitative and I need enough responses that I can base decisions on that, because the answers of 8 people does not represent Southeast Michigan, but the answer of 1,200 people, 300 people might be projectable, and you can really go and believe that that's what a broader group are thinking. These political polls don't just call 2 people and go, so-and-so's ahead by 50 points. It's, they contact an insane number of people every day.
And one other thing I'd want to add too, just in terms of how we're also using data and kind of connecting to Brad's question in terms of, our external research vendors that we use. So, we're tracking a lot of our brand health metrics, so awareness, consideration, social sentiment, and that helps us to inform our media plans. So for instance, if we start to, and this happened because of COVID, we start to become a little bit lighter in TV and some of our upper funnel communications and channels, we do see a direct correlation to our awareness levels dipping. So a lot of times when, we always have to manage up with our executives because, when we're starting to cut spend or they're wanting to cut spend due to maybe a COVID environment, we do push back pretty hard, and we utilize that data to show like we need to continue to spend in order to keep our brand health metrics up. If we start going dark in TV, our brand awareness is going to take a hit, and we have seen that direct correlation. So we also use that to inform, media plans, but also to manage up with our executives when, we face, certain things like COVID and a pandemic where we have to cut back on spend.
If I guys squeeze in one more question, is that okay? My question was for Casey. He mentioned the Super Bowl ads. I thought one of the great ads was the Jason Momoa Get Comfortable commercial by High Dive. So I kind of wanted to get a behind the scenes look. Like, how did you get to that ad? Like, how many agencies did you kind of send solicitations to, and how did you pick that ad as the one to use?
Yeah, and thank you. When you have to realize when you're in the Super Bowl, if you think about a 60-second spot, the production and all the accompanying media that goes around it, with YouTube, with extended distribution, it's about a $20 million day. So you better make sure you got the damn best spot that you think you have for that brand. Albeit we have 100 people in creative. We jump ball Super Bowl it. So last year we went to 13 agencies. We briefed 13 agencies. We started off at 150 ideas. We cut it down to about 35, reshaped the ideas, started looking at feasibility and, has this actor or blah, 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 where do they engage with? Are they even interested? We eventually moved to looking at animatics and proofs of concepts. We start negotiations, loose negotiations with talent. Finally, I'm sitting in a room and I'll present 4 or 6 final ideas to our CEO and chairman. They're very intimately involved in the Super Bowl process, and then you pick the idea, and then it's go. It's about a 7-month process. It's the most terrifying 60 seconds of your life, because all your hard work is gone in 60 seconds, and you're at the mercy of this, right? And then you sit back and you look at, you can either have a really good day the next day or a really bad day, depending on public opinion. But it's thrilling. It's thrilling. I always say, like, I'm good. I've been fortunate enough to do 5 Super Bowl spots in my career. I always say, you know what, I might be good for a while. And then right about April, I started thinking about next year. We're going through that right now. And it's an exciting process, very, very stressful. But what I always try to remind myself at the end is, if this was easy, every brand would do it. And it's not easy. But it's an exhilarating process. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, that's really 350 down to 1. I think I heard that.
Yeah, so you're looking. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of hours and looking at ideas and and it's not just Casey's opinion. I think someone asked about success. Like, literally, I will pull an intern into my office and pitch them the Super Bowl idea, because I'm a 49-year-old, white guy. And if I'm going down a path on something, I want to hear from the perspective of a 22-year-old student. Like, I'll literally pull in interns and ask them, I'll pitch them the Super Bowl ideas, because my biggest fear is that we're going to create something that I like. That does nobody any good. I want to make sure that what we do is relevant to a wide range of audience.
Yeah, I'll throw on to Casey's point that it all comes down to spending time in the right places, right? So if you're spending a lot of money in a certain spot, you're going to put a lot of time into it. To give you an example, we did a Super Bowl ad around Silverado a few years back. The agency brought in 77 edits of that spot as we were working on it. And that's after you've shot it before we ship it, right? And to his point, I mean, they had everybody from the CMO of GM to a group of about 15 people at the end of the day that had to kind of work through that ad. So it's, but like I think a lot of people said today, I mean, honestly, I got into this because it's a fun career. It's creative. You enjoy it. And if you don't take risks, you're probably not going to do real well. You got to try some things, and not everything's going to work, but you keep coming in every day and finding different ways to come up with ideas, because it's an idea business. So.
All right, we have a question from the chat. I think we have a convert here. We have a student pursuing an MBA here at Wayne State with a bachelor's in accounting. Student says, I did a few videos during the lockdown and I really enjoyed the feedback I received from the viewers. Do you advise starting a career in marketing since I'm in the process of job searching? If so, how? So we have an accounting major working on an MBA that is now thinking about switching to a career in marketing. Any suggestions?
I mean, I'll go first. I mean, I think it went back to earlier, like when Rich meets with people, like I've never asked him this, I shouldn't say this, but I've never what's your grade point? And I start grilling. I guarantee you, of our 300 people, geez, I'd be hard pressed to see over 60% of my team has a marketing advertising major. I could have accountants and psych and whatever, social, whatever it might be. We'd probably be very surprised if we looked at our organizations. So I wouldn't look twice if a student were to come to me and go, hey, I'm an accounting major, but this is my passion. This is what I love doing. That's great. Now's the time to explore that. I don't know what kind of videos you're doing. If you're doing stunts or whatever it may be, have at it. And if it's something, at the end of the day, it's about doing something you love. The last thing you ever want to do is go do something that you're not enjoying it. We all wake up. We're all been doing this for a long time. I still have fun. I feel like a 25-year-old kid half the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. In our organization, we have other folks around the company that will come to us, and I'll do a lot of informational interviews, and they'll be from audit, from treasury, from risk, and they want to get into marketing. And sometimes what we will do is we'll do a stretch assignment to say, hey, you know what, we have a lot of work going on right now on the brand team. Let's try out a stretch assignment. See if you like it, see if on our side, if you could be a good fit if something were to open up. But certainly just because you're in one major doesn't mean that you couldn't go and do something else, right? You're not pigeonholed. And even within marketing ourselves, we do internal rotation. So just because you've done digital marketing for 6 years in your career, we are trying now to give other people opportunities. So, to get exposure to other areas within marketing so they are more well-rounded.
All right, any other questions? We're just a few minutes over our allotted time. Anybody want to ask anything else before we sign off?
No, just thanks for everyone's time. It's really insightful.
Great.
Oh, you're welcome. So glad you could join us.
Thank you to everybody. I learned some things too.
Me too.
I think I might go into accounting though.
We have a convert.
And one final thing just to the students. So we're going to be sending out a follow-up survey after the event to get some ideas for what you all would like to see in future events from the Marketing Advisory Board and from the Career Planning and Placement Office and Marketing Department. So just make sure you watch for that survey and you fill it out and you're as honest as possible so that we can continue to do similar events like this in the future.
All right, and a big shout out to our panel again. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. I wish I had people like you when I was starting my career.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Thank you.
Good night all.